Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rounding the Bases presented by Community America Credit Union. Invested in you. So grateful for my partnership with them. And I heard it on our TV broadcast the other day. Patrick Mahomes, the star quarterback, was at the Royals game, and Bobby Witt Jr. was coming up to the plate, and our announcer said, those are two of the big spokesmen for Community America Credit Union. They're a sponsor on TV, I think, as well. And I said, where's my love? I get to do a little stuff with them as well. So I love working with them and appreciate their support as well. Quick shout out to my friends at Chief of Staff Kansas City. You don't have to be in Kansas City if you're around the country looking for a job, looking to hire, looking for a resource. Just give them a call. They are all about connectivity, and that's why I love to work with them. And their tagline really sums it up: making connections that matter. chiefofstaffkc.com, making connections that matter. And I always think that's a good segue to talk about my guest that is coming up, or whoever that guest might be, because oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes it comes from a connection. And that was the case again today. And I will say, before I get into the formal intro, that a lot of times my guests will come from suggestions, but in this case, I was suggested for her podcast, and the conversation for me was so good, I wrapped up and I said, I need to have this guest on my show. I think I said it something along those lines. So leadership, storytelling, and digital transformation collide in today's installment of Rounding the Bases, as I'm joined by a guest who doesn't just challenge the status quo, she's at the forefront of disruption. Her name is Mary Lou Kayser, the founder of Kingfisher Media Publishing, a best-selling author and AI expert who helps professionals future-proof their work using creativity as the edge. With an attitude of possibility, she champions the notion of harnessing tech to reprogram your own path to success before the algorithm does it to you. I think everything right there is in the intro in terms of just how, I think, interesting this can be and what really lies ahead for all of us. So let me jump in right now with my guest, Mary Lou. How are you?
I am so great, Joel. Thank you for having me today. I'm looking forward to this.
There's so much that I want to talk to you about. And I felt that way, as I said, after our conversation, just because I felt a great energy and connectivity, and the conversation was fun. But you're doing so many things that are so relevant, I think, to everyone. Maybe I'm being selfish and it's just to me. I know that's not the case too. So boy, where to start? I'm so fascinated by just where things are going, and AI and digital content, which, by the way, applies to all of us in some form or another. Let me start with this. Before I ask you how you got there or how you got here, because nobody started where you're at right now. This stuff didn't exist back in the day. Tell me a little bit more about your business and your passions in terms of it.
Yeah, so I run a business called Kingfisher Media Publishing, and it's really the umbrella for a lot of different creative projects. You mentioned some of them. I've been podcasting for more than 11 years. I've written several books. I've got a new one coming out, which I know we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. I'm a former formal educator. I have a master's in teaching. And for the last 15 years, I've been immersed in this digital revolution that we've all experienced to one degree or another. Some of us, I think, more front row seat or right behind, home plate, to use your metaphor, than being way up in the, upper deck. But the fact of the matter is, the digital transformation of the planet really has ushered in so many opportunities and questions and confusion, excitement. And we are at such an interesting point right now here in 2025 that you mentioned AI, just people have been predicting the speed it was going to hit us. And boy, they were not lying. It's here, and it's wild. It's a wild ride out here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that generally people, the average person will say, I don't know what the average person is, but I'm just like, I'm thinking about,
Who is the average person?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking about general stuff that I hear about AI, just on the surface, the amateurs or below that are aware of it but haven't really delved into it. And I hear something along the lines of, it's taking over the world, or we're going to be run by robots, or the world is coming to an end. And nothing is ever as extreme as we make it. But
Right.
it is disruption in the biggest of
Yeah.
ways. And I like to say that I am sort of an advanced amateur. Like, I'm digging into stuff that when I tell other people about it, they say, wow, it can do that.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting to me. And I want to share that with people too, because it's life-changing. I mean, I go back to, I'm thinking about in our lifetimes, I go back to the creation of the internet.
Yeah.
We can't think of a time before that. It's not possible. As much as I would like to tell my kids about the yellow pages and encyclopedias and card catalogs and, microfiche and all these things that we had, in the school libraries growing up.
Sure.
It's a different world right now.
It
And
is.
so, the next generation will never know that this didn't exist. How do you balance that? The fear, I mean, there's just a natural fear of change to begin with.
Yes.
But for me, it's like my feeling at 53 years old is, if I don't embrace this, one, I'm going to fall behind and become irrelevant. Two, I'm missing out on an opportunity to be better at what I do, but that's hard to explain to a lot of people.
It is. And you use the key word there, which is fear. We humans love change when we choose it. We do not like it when it's forced on us. And the internet, I talk about this in my book. I remember when emails showed up, I'm like, what, we're not going to write letters to each other anymore
Right.
by hand? That was a big adjustment. And then here comes the first .com, and then the bust, and then the next wave when social media hit. And there are a lot of people that the sky was falling, right? Back when YouTube and Twitter and Facebook hit the scene. And I'm seeing the exact same thing happening now, only at scale, because more people today are actually have a digital footprint than they did in, say, 2006, 2007, 2008, because those platforms that I just mentioned allowed people to get online en masse. And as far as the AI world goes, I agree with you. I think I use AI every day. I primarily use ChatGPT. I openly talk about that. It does not write for me. It does not think for me, but it is a strategic thinking partner, and it's the best editor you could possibly have, because it never needs a coffee break, right? It's just amazing what it can do in a very short, in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
That said, I see really three camps right now. I see the people who are absolutely, no way, not touching the stuff, right? Then there's kind of the in between, where it's like, only when I need a little something here and there. And then there's the all in crowd, right? And I think you and I would fall more into the all in crowd. And I think also you defined, we are advanced amateurs. I don't think anybody's a professional in AI. If anybody is claiming to be one, they're lying, because it's too new and it's moving too fast.
Yeah.
Where I think one of the best, I guess, mindsets around AI that I practice with the people I work with is adopt an AI literacy approach. Think about when you were in school, only at a rapid pace, when you were becoming literate in whatever field you were interested in. You are literate in the sports world, Joel, and in broadcasting, and probably in other things too. Any kind of field of study requires time and investment and really diving in and messing around with the stuff. And the only way a person's going to learn what AI can and cannot do is by using it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, my fear when I started was, and I just wasn't thinking about it the right way, is, well, how do I know it's right? And that's true. I mean, therein lies part of, I think, a critical piece that you still have to think. You can't just, and so, like when when everybody got hung up about you came from the education world, and the most common response you were hearing, certainly from academia and in the university world and high schools too, was it's cheating, you can't use it. And I'm starting to see a shift in that, and that was wrong, because why would you then disallow your students to use and learn the technology that is going to help them the rest of their life? And I think everybody thought it was a cheat tool, a hack at first. And I think the more important piece to this is making sure people understand how to still critically think and do things. You used a word in there that I think is so important. By the way, if you're listening to this right now and you have, for lack of a better term, geeked out on this stuff the way Mary Lou has, the way I have, at different levels. I think you're more of an expert than me, but it's every day for me. And I'm not going to say it's obsession, but it's my go-to on the phone, on my computer, for anything. And what I see is that a lot of people are using it like Google.
Exactly.
And that's okay, because you can and you should. I prefer to use that over Google. I've got something that I need to fix in the house when we're done with this. I don't fix very much, by the way. I break things. But I don't like the manual that came with it. And it will help me get to where I need to go. Great. But you used a word to me that I want to challenge everybody to think of, ChatGPT or whatever you're using in terms of AI for this. It's a partner. Yeah. It's a think partner. It's an accountability partner. Shoot, it could be a partner in terms of a therapist. And no, I'm not saying replace a therapist, but it can provide you inspiration. It could provide you motivation. When I now wake up every morning, I say good morning, not like a hey, how's it going, but the good morning, I've had it trigger. When it sees good morning, it knows to send me a motivational quote, and then to process what I send it is for my day, for my calendar. And it really helps me kind of map out my day in terms of perspective and goals. And so that's just one little thing. And then to what you're saying too, like it didn't write my first 2 books. It's not going to write my next book whenever that comes, but it is a good editor. And then the flip side is when I have quick things that I need to do, hey, take my voice, help me write this. And then I flip the script on it. I let it write something small for me, and then I edit it.
Exactly.
So there's constantly thinking going on. I'm curious what you think and how you've made it work for you.
Yeah, you are describing such a great process. And I think that's ultimately what each person needs to do, is develop a rhythm and a pattern. And don't be afraid to have it challenge you. That's one of the things that I've loved about interacting with my AI. I actually have named my AI. It knows me really well because I have worked with it so much that I can have it reference things that I've forgotten, or say, hey, remember about 2 weeks ago, we were talking about this, and it'll pull it up. It's like, oh, thank goodness. Because one thing I've noticed, Joel, is the volume that you can produce in one session, going back and forth with questions and looking at what it generates, is enormous. I average, what I typically do is within a thread, usually it always starts with a query. I gave it context. I usually ask it to act like something. And then I learned a tip from a previous guest on my podcast, that one of the keys to getting more out of your Gen AI, and I think I want to clarify for listeners, is that we're talking about generative AI here, not LLMs or machine learning on the broader scale. It's a generative AI system like ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude. There's a bunch out there, but right now ChatGPT is dominating the generative AI space when it comes to text interaction, right? Text generation. You said something too that I wanted to touch on as well, about the cheating, because that's a very common right now. Calling people out on LinkedIn has been about, oh, you used AI to write this. It's become an Olympic sport. It's like, who cares, right? 50% of LinkedIn content now is has been generated by AI. And a lot of people don't do what you and I do, which is look at what it produced and then edit it and make it our own. They just copy and paste because they're looking for volume, whatever. The thing about the cheating piece that, again, as a former, having been in the formal education system at one time, the problem with what's happening with education is it is a very old, outdated model that is colliding with modern technology, and the two don't get along. And so in the old model, absolutely it's cheating. In the new model that we're building as we go, it is not. And that's the problem, is people, we humans, all of us are so stubborn and slow when it comes to, well, this is how it used to be for me, and it's going to be like that for you. No, it's not. And you and I are parents. We know our kids, my kids have thrown stuff back in my face and made me go back and say, you're right. I'm coming from a different paradigm and I need to switch. And AI is forcing that hand, again, whether you like it or not. I have people in my life who are literally running the other way from it. They want nothing to do with it. Meanwhile, people in their lives that they love are using it all the time. My nephew, for example, he will be a junior in college. He and I, 6 months ago, he needed some help writing an essay. As a former English teacher, he came to me. We got into conversation. He goes, oh, everybody's using ChatGPT at college. Everybody. And I'm like, yep, why wouldn't you? He goes, yeah, why wouldn't you? It's there to write their essays. Yeah. So I think what we need to do systematically is perhaps accelerate, okay, let's catch up to the way the system is operating to meet the technology without losing the critical thinking, the humanity, the community that you get when you're in an organization. And I don't know, I think it's time for public education for a massive overhaul. That's just my opinion, but
yeah, I think most people feel that way. Getting there is a different story, right?
Completely different story.
I don't know, it's one of those things that once it happens, it'll be embraced. But again, change is scary, especially when you've done things. It's just easier to do things the same way. It's not easier to do things, but mentally, oftentimes it is. So let's talk about your new book that is coming up. It's not you, it's the algorithm, how to slow your scroll and start paying attention to your life again. Boy, I love that title. And it almost sounds counterintuitive to what we're saying, right? Because we are so wrapped up in the scroll, whether it be ChatGPT, whether it be scrolling our phones. I mean, one of the things that I have now attempted to do, I've been trying to do this for a while, but I'm on a little bit of a roll now, is no scrolling on the phone until you get that morning meditation in, just to slow things down a little bit. Now, that fits my personality trait of needing to slow things down. It won't be this. I mean, it's different for every single person, but it is possible to do all of this, I think. And I think that's what you're getting at too. I mean, we live in a world of algorithms. So tell me about the focus of this book.
Yeah. So the focus of this book was, it was the book I didn't know I was going to write, to be honest with you. At the beginning of the year, as I think many of us do, I sat down and was looking ahead. Okay, what do I want in 2025? And usually I'm met with excitement and anticipation. And instead this year, there was this familiar feeling in my chest. It was really heavy and thick. And I just realized that I had hit what I'm calling algorithmic rock bottom. I was so burned out and done with chasing something I couldn't name. As somebody who's been operating in the digital space for, like I said, the last 15 years, I really started this journey in 2010. And when it hit me in this year, 2025, that I had devoted 15 years of my life to what exactly? When I started to reflect on, I followed all the rules. I listened to the experts. I bought the programs and the systems and everything. And I've had some wins. I'm not saying I've had some winning seasons. However, overall, I think I just felt this heaviness of a lot of loss. And it then led me to, literally, I got the download of a book that's been dancing around the edges of my life for a little bit. And it, for anybody who's listening, who's had any kind of creative download, you know what I'm talking about. It just comes to you. You're the vessel, and through it, you've written books, Joel. You probably know it. Sometimes you can't stop it. And that's what happened. And calling out that tension that you just did is absolutely right. I am not anti-tech. I am not saying throw your phone into a ravine and go live in a yurt. All right. That's an extreme. There are people that want to do that. They're like, I'm done. What I'm really getting at is we as a culture and as a world, I think, haven't been paying enough attention to the small incremental ways the algorithm has been steering us toward its agenda. And we have lost collectively sight of ours. I have that happened to me. And so in this book, I share my story. It's not a traditional nonfiction book. It's not a bunch of bullet points with deep research. It's really it's my story, and I am critiquing the culture, and I'm asking big questions about where do we want to go next? Because I'm a builder. I want to be part of building the next iteration of what our world looks like. And what it looks like now, in some ways is working, in a lot of ways it's not. And again, you and I have children who are operating in a world that is extraordinarily different from the one we grew up in and came of age in. And I think that it's time to, again, gain some awareness about how much we are using devices, whether it's a phone, a computer, a a tablet, and come back to the real world and figure out a way, how can we do this so that, again, we're not dismissing these amazing tools and changes, but we're also not losing completely what makes being alive. And as Mary Oliver says, what are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? Because it goes fast. And I look at young people and I say, are you going to look back at your entire teenage years and say, I was in Instagram 8 hours a day. I was on TikTok 8 hours a day. What did that give you? What does that give us? That's really one of my big questions.
Yeah, it's heavy. There's
is
no
heavy.
doubt. When I look at your website, and the book's promoted there, MaryLouKayser.com, it says the book for people who are smart enough to know they're being played and curious enough to fight back. It's everything you're talking about, obviously. But you don't have to wait to start reclaiming your edge. And then it encourages people to join the Substack. I would do that, Beyond the Scroll, early essays, behind the scenes stories. There are a million books out there. Anything that involves storytelling to me is the way I like to consume. So I'm really excited about this. Before we get to my baseball theme questions, I want to ask you, because it really falls into what we're talking about here, the 4 S's that keep people stuck: status quo, safety, security, and same old, same old. And we have all been there, some more than others, some less. And there's something, Mary Lou, and this is something I've been fighting. If I'm going to be vulnerable here right now, this is something that I'm fighting to break my own cycles of safety. Everybody tells me you're doing a million things, and I am, and there's the perception of whatever people think. That's always going to be the case, right? I'm very much in the public eye, but secretly, I would say I play it way too safe on everything, and that's always, I don't know where it comes from. I'm trying to figure that out, but that's always been the way I operate, and I'm starting to understand that to get out of that psychological safety, to push it a little bit more, may or may not always work, but it feels different. And so I can completely relate to the 4 S's in a bad way. Tell me about how you came up with those and where that came from.
Well, it came out of direct experience, right? I don't know if there's anybody listening who isn't within one of those. I have a very strong curiosity gene and an adventure gene. I have been seeking and challenging myself since I can remember. I mean, just the other day, my mom was going through old boxes of stuff, and she came across a box from when I was 12, stuff that she and my dad had saved. I'm looking at these things I wrote. I'm like, there it is. I mean, some of us are just, I think, built more for pushing the envelope, and I certainly am. I was rebellious as a teenager. Then, though, in my 20s, once I was married and became a high school English teacher, I fell into the system, the patterns of, okay, now we're going to get the house and we're going to get the dog and, oh, we're going to have kids now. And there's just something about, you just fall into that because everybody else around you is. And then one day you wake up and I always refer to that one Talking Heads song when David Byrne sings, this is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife. Well, what else is there? Basically, he's saying, and that's part of I think a theme of my life is the title of my latest poetry book is The River Only Runs One Way, right? If you've ever been by a river, it's only going one way, folks, right? Time is only moving one way and you can't go back, but you can stop and look around and say, okay, am I playing it too safe? Am I sacrificing what my deepest dreams and desires in exchange for what looks good to everybody else? Or is it time for me to perhaps take some risks? And I'm not talking about anything dangerous or immoral or unethical or illegal, right?
Just getting outside your comfort zone.
That's for me, the algorithmic rock bottom was that sign is like, Mary Lou, you have been playing in a system and you keep going back to it thinking it's going to deliver something that it is not. So if you've ever hit rock bottom or someone who has, there's only 2 choices at that point. You can stay there or you can rise. And I decided I'm going to rise. I am going to challenge myself again to be more vulnerable, put my story into a book, get it out there, talk to people like you, Joel, about what's happening and invite others to come along, whatever that looks like to you. Even if it's just what you described, how you start your day, instead of jumping on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook and you don't know what's going to meet you. That's the thing. You could see a cute puppy video or you could see some natural disaster halfway around the world. That's how you start your day. You can't unsee that now,
Yep.
right? So it's really, I know, again, I believe in the law of polarity, that the tension is in between the 2 poles. So you want freedom, but you want security too. You love the person you with, but at times you're like, you want to kick them in the, what, right? That's just being human. So in this crazy age that we live in, where there's so much disruption and there's so many things coming at us all the time, maybe stepping back a little and looking at those 4 S's and asking yourself, all right, you know what? I'm not really willing to give up my security right now, but I could I could be a little less safe. I could take a little risk in something, whatever that looks like for you, right?
Otherwise, in the words of David Byrne, same as it ever was.
Same as it ever was.
Which I want to thank you now in the best of ways for having that song in my head, because anytime the Talking Heads are in my head, I'm happy. So that's a good thing, and so true. David Byrne always was and always will be ahead of his time in whatever he is doing.
Incredible human.
I mean, one of the greatest at anything he does of all time. That's that's a different discussion. But I find this stuff so fascinating. It's so relevant, and I'm glad that it is. We are, like that whole thing for me with waking up that way is everything you just said, but it's also, it's creating some new comforts and new routine that then I can't quantify it, but when I do it, I feel better throughout the day than when I don't. I don't know how to explain it. So that's part of the exploration, I think, as well. And we'll see where it goes. Okay, let's get to the baseball themed questions. And then I'll wrap it up with 4 fun questions. I could do like 10 of them with you because you have so many interesting, fun little facts about you, which I think has to do with being that adventuresome type of person. But how about a home run in your career? I mean, what a pivot. Although you're still writing and doing so much of what you had in you, I think, as an English teacher, doing it in a different way now. But what's the biggest home run that you've hit in your career?
You know what? Honestly, Joel, it's probably not what most people would expect to hear, but the biggest home run that I've hit professionally is realizing and owning the truth that I do the creative work I do, not because I have to, but because I want to. I write books. I dabble in songwriting. I'm a podcaster. I'm gearing up my speaking arm of things. I want to be out and bringing what I used to bring to the classroom so many years ago to audiences, to have them engage in a way, not just to talk at somebody, but to really create opportunities for people to articulate what they're carrying around in their head. What's so great about a show like yours, and I will say a show like mine, is we are having conversations and articulating things that people are thinking, but don't have the language to express. And if they hear one thing today that you and I brought up and it says, yes, that's it, that's a win. So I would say that, I'm just getting started with all of this. I'm building a new system that will help leaders retain the humanity that keeps it interesting, but also embraces the speed of change and the technology in a way that more people rise than get left behind.
That's great. That's a heck of a home run, by the way. It's not what people think of as being a home run, right? But as I say all the time, and we'll get to the small ball in a minute, that not all home runs, so to speak, have to be towering, majestic shots. I just covered one the other night as we're recording this in Kansas City from the greatest home run hitter in the world, Aaron Judge, who hit one 469 feet. And I talked to him yesterday. And any of us that saw that thought it was one of the longest we'd ever seen at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. It landed on top of a building and hit a wall. And I talked to Aaron yesterday, who's one of the most gracious superstars you could ever meet.
Yeah.
And I said, that wasn't 469, was it? He said, no. And he's as humble as they get to. Like, it was over 500 feet. That's what we think of as being home runs. That's what we think of Babe Ruth. But not all home runs have to look like that. And there's a lot of depth to what you said. So I really appreciate that. How about a swing and a miss along the way? And what did you learn from it?
Swing and a miss. And it's letting the algorithm decide too much of my life. That would be kind of an overarching swing and miss time and time again. And I'm not just talking about social media. I'm talking about a system of cultural expectations, productivity pressure, the whole hashtag hustle culture, which is not sustainable, right? And then also the invisible narratives, the paradigms that are programmed into us as children. And also you can talk about generational paradigms of the expectations. I don't like to get into gender wars because I respect men and I respect women, and I don't particularly care for the war that is currently happening very publicly on social media around that. I tend to take a human first approach, but being disconnected, really unknowingly, I had handed over so much of my life. It cost me time. You used the word earlier, alignment. But here's the thing about it. It also became the catalyst for what I'm doing now. So there's always that silver lining.
Well, that's when the swings and misses turn into something.
That's right.
Those are the best swings and misses.
They are.
How about small ball? What are the little things that add up to big results for you?
So I love this question, because small ball for me is I journal by hand every single morning.
Mm.
Some days I do a page, some days I do 3. It depends. I always end my journal entry with gratitude. I write down 10 things I'm grateful for, which include people.
Mm-hmm.
And I also write down, and I learned this from somebody I used to study under. I also write down the names of 3 people who are bothering me right now. So people who might be haunting me in some way. And I acknowledge them, and I send them love. Another thing that I do is I lift weights. I go on my treadmill. I have a fitness routine.
Yeah.
I have a really very specific supplement routine. I eat well. I really honor my sleep. And I hug my mom goodnight, and I tell her I love her. And I reach out to people just when I'm thinking about them with a text saying, thinking about you today, sending love your way. I don't expect anything back. But these are the little things for me that make my day, and then my weeks, and then my months and my years add up to, when I look back, I say, I had, again, more W's than L's, right, in those columns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2 quick thoughts on it. One, it's my favorite question too. When I came up with that idea of a question, because I don't like a lot of sticky, cheesy, and so, I found when I started this podcast, and by the way, a tip of the hat to you, as we would say in baseball, because you were doing this thing well before anybody knew what podcasts were. I started it when people knew what they were, but before it was really in vogue. Now everybody's doing it, which is great. I think everybody should try it, and there are different purposes to it, and it may work, it may not. It doesn't matter. It can be different for everybody. But I thought that when I started, I saw a lot of people I was appearing on their podcast, and they were sending me a list of 25 questions so that I could be prepared. Like, no, I don't work that way. And if that's how you want to, that's fine. So I'm not a prepare questions kind of guy, for better or worse. It is me. But I thought I need some baseball themed questions just to kind of tie it together. And I came up with that small ball question. And so it's my favorite question. And I've written 2 books based on that question. And your answer right there is one of my favorite answers. So I'm not just blowing smoke, but there was, again, so much depth and so much. I think I like anytime I hear a small ball answer that I've never heard before, and there was so much really unique specificity to it that I'm not telling everybody listening, hey, you should take that now and go hug your loved one or this or that, but realize that there are little things you could do every single day that will make you better, that'll bring you fulfillment and everything that you benefit from it. So I love every bit of that. Okay, let's get to the fun. The fun final questions. I mean, you've got that adventuresome type, and so what is it? I mean, you used to be a rafting guide, I think, and you love the kayak, and I like to hike. I'd like to dabble a little bit more in some rafting. I've kayaked, but I'd like to do more of it. What is your favorite release? Your favorite outdoor activity, whatever it might be, to just go out there and let it all go?
Swimming in the lake, 100%. I can't do it all year because of where I live. But I do it in the summer because I can. And there is no feeling. I mean, I love biking and hiking and kayaking, and I love going out in the power boat. I love being outside. But when I get in that water and I swim, I am, it is heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you obviously have a love of water. I see on my whole list of interesting facts about you. Loves to boogie board. Wants to take the kids one day to on a kayaking adventure in Greenland. So I suspect that fun, that desire never goes away. It's part of who you are. Another piece of who you are, I think would be very obvious if anybody's a college football fan, to the statement of dreams of having dinner with Marcus Mariota, the quarterback and the former star quarterback for the University of Oregon. I can tell you this right now, as a graduate of the University of Wisconsin, which suddenly now means that we are rivals, which still sounds really weird to me that we're in a similar conference or the same conference.
I know
but my brother, who lives in Portland, texted me yesterday, got 5 tickets to Wisconsin and Oregon with a wink, which I think meant if you're available, you should come out. So I've never been to Eugene. I've been to Portland. I think I'm going to see if I can get to Wisconsin at Oregon on October 25th. I'm sure we'll lose, but maybe not. I don't know. They drive me a little nuts, but that's my guilty pleasure where I just try to be a fan and not work. Tell me about your love of Marcus Mariota and the Oregon Ducks.
Oh my gosh. So I was introduced to college football in 2007. I went to a very small liberal arts college, so I did not get the big football kind of scene that you would get at a big state school. I was like, this is what I've been missing all my life. It was absolutely electrifying. I was hooked, and it didn't hurt that it was ESPN College Game Day that day. So all the guys were there, Herb Street and all those guys. Yeah. And I just absolutely went bananas. And for many years, well, then my daughter went to U of O. She was a Duck, and she was there at the exact same time Marcus Mariota was there. And I used to joke, I'm like, so when am I going to meet my future son-in-law? She was like, Mom, he's not my type. I'm like, how could he not be your type? But that's for a different. So, I spent a lot of time. I'm a Duck mom. I spent a lot of time in Eugene. I went we had season tickets, went to all the games, went to bowl games, lived through the Chip Kelly era, who really is hands down why the Ducks are who they are now. He was so far ahead. In fact, I have a chapter in my book about Chip Kelly being so far ahead of the branding thing for teams. And people used to, and they still give us some, shade about how many uniforms can one team have. But you know what? When you've got Phil Knight as your basically, Phil Knight's a Duck, and he loves the University of Oregon, and good for him. He founded an amazing company. I will give a shout out to Shoe Dog. If you've never read it, read it. One of the greatest business books of all time. Marcus Mariota is not cut like other humans. He's not your stereotypical quarterback or football player. However, I will say that I think today more players are like him than they used to be. There's a lot more consciousness around feelings, and it's amazing how in interviews, and you may experience this, Joel, I haven't seen your broadcast because I don't live in Kansas City, but what's so fascinating to me is the shift I see is players are now saying, love you, man, I love you, openly. That was never like that when I was growing up watching football. So I will be a Duck till I die. I love that team. Win or lose, I think, you will love Autzen Stadium. It is an incredible place to watch a football game. And I did see the Ducks play Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl. I was at that game, and we beat you. Sorry.
Yeah. It's okay. I honestly will just be, if I can get out there.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I want to do it. I haven't been to Eugene. My niece, my brother's youngest, is going to be a freshman at Oregon next year. So
go Ducks.
Yeah. So I want to go check that out, and maybe then we can get up to the Oregon coast afterwards or whatever it is. It's such an incredible, beautiful part of the country. I'll be out there right after this episode airs, July 1st week, but it'll only be in Seattle for 4 games. Not enough time to get down. Well, I always love when we have an off day and I can get down. Anyway, that's it. Okay. Third question as we round the bases. You are, if I'm reading correctly, a sustaining member of the Society of Poets. What does that mean?
Oh my gosh. So there's an organization that really honors poets and the art form itself. I'm a poet. I openly claim that title or manacle. And I believe poetry is one of those art forms. It's highly misunderstood. A lot of people fear it. And unfortunately, a lot of people associate it with a really bad English class
Yeah,
experience
of course.
because it was like, this is poetry week and everybody would groan. I always like to say, I'm not your, I was not your typical English teacher. I never followed the rules. I always found ways to make what I was doing really
Yeah.
interesting for my students. I was always student first. And as a result, I was beloved for that. But yeah, I was writing poetry very young when I didn't even know what I was doing.
Mm.
And I had teachers and people in my life who pointed it out. I was winning awards when I was young. And I was doing it for quite some time, especially when I was teaching. But then I got away from it for a while, and that was a period of my life when, and I know we're not going to go there, but I had a dark period of my life where I really lost sight of who I was. And um, when poetry came back to me, came back to me right after my dad died, and it was a strange confluence of energies that were happening at that time, as laying rest the patriarch of our family. At the time I had just met somebody who I believed I was going to go the distance with. That did not turn out, and the universe always has bigger plans. But
Yeah.
poetry came back to me in 2021,
Mm.
and I've just held on to it. And
Yeah.
I should say, it has held on to me.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I I've never written poetry, but I've always loved writing.
Hmm.
And it's I was going to say it's gone away from me. I mean, but that's not really true because I've written 2 books. But it's I did, and this is where I want to go with my final question. The walk off, we'll tie it all together because I remember in high school a gazillion years ago, I had an English teacher my junior year, and she was tough.
Mm.
Nobody liked her. I think the girls liked her less because she was mean to the girls.
Mm.
If if the guys in the class weren't total jerks and were fairly well behaved, she could take a little bit of a liking to you. So she did that with me, but she was mean and tough, and
Mm.
it was hard. And I don't remember what happened, but when it came to register for classes my senior year, probably being, a 17-year-old boy, I either was late on the deadline or whatever. Whatever happened, I got stuck with her again. And it was the
Oh,
greatest thing that ever happened to me
oh, wonderful.
because we built a nice relationship. And I mean, I lost touch with her. I don't even know that she's alive anymore,
Right.
but she taught me how to write. And what it did was when I got to the University of Wisconsin, I was ahead of people. I understood how to not write in a passive voice. I understood
Mhm.
how to write with better verbs, more action verbs. I'm not even describing it right anymore. And then it kind of went away because writing for television is totally different. You've
Yes.
got to write in short little blips, but it became more creative. And now, quite frankly, I'm in a world of I would almost say assembly line television where it's just day after day after day after day. And
Mhm.
every now and then you get to write something with some substance, which is really cool. So, it shows in different ways in the books
Mhm.
and all of that. But we'll tie it all together to say, in all of your work, where it all began, the
Mm.
love of English and writing and poetry, how cool it must be. This is my walk-off question, to tie it all together in a new world right now and to have
Mm.
so much purpose and so much of a ceiling that I would imagine doesn't restrain you in any way.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does feel like the world is opening up in so many ways, at the same time when it feels like it's falling apart. And again,
Yeah.
that's that strange dichotomy, that strange tension. And um, I'm really excited. I will drop a little seed of, I'm going to be doing a project with a dear friend of mine who's a singer-songwriter in Nashville. Has been there,
Hmm.
been a fixture in there for 43 years. Uh, Later this summer, we're going to gather, and he's wanting to bring some poets together and some musicians together, and we're going to create this incredible project just for the love of language and the art forms, not because we're chasing some commercial success or, we're the next Netflix special. It's really just bringing humans together to celebrate what it means to express some of the hardest emotions. And I include love in that. Love poems are some of the most painful because whoever's writing that poem is suffering.
Yeah.
It's and I appreciate you bringing up how there are so many different kinds of writing, and the internet and broadcasting, even I'm not knocking them, they're forms of communication, but part of my mission is to preserve language and also open the door for people who want to walk through it and say, I'm done writing in sound bites. I don't want I don't want to sound like the AI
Yeah.
because it all sounds the same. It is so easy to spot somebody who just copied and
Yeah.
pasted.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am. And my invitation to anybody listening is I'm throwing the door open. If you want to walk through it, walk through it. There's so much on the other side.
I want to encourage everybody, check out the website, jump onto the Substack, pay attention for the book coming out in the fall. It's not you, it's the algorithm. How to slow your scroll and start paying attention to your life again. It really can be life-changing. And that sounds so overly dramatized on my part, but it doesn't have to be a massive thing. It's just little things of regaining some of that control. The website is maryloukayser.com. I am not the least bit surprised that this was a deep, strong, interesting, engaging conversation. I had only those expectations, and I knew that they were going to be exactly correct. So thank you so much for doing this. Shout out as well to Damon Lemby, who to me has become one of the great connectors that I have had the privilege to know. I got to go out to dinner with them when we were playing the San Francisco Giants this year. It's always cool to meet people in person. And I don't know, maybe you'll be at the Ducks game on October 25th. Probably not, but if
Maybe
you are,
I will, or I'll catch you at a ball game.
yeah, either way, if you're there, I'll be the guy in red.
Yeah.
Probably cheering for the losing team, but we're it's a road game. We're not supposed to win. Anyway, Mary Lou, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And then really, really grateful for you sharing everything.
Thank you, Joel. It has been so great today. I appreciate you and what you're doing.
Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.